and preparing. Wow. Okay, it's kind of cool. Um, no, know what to think about it yet. So yeah, this should be sweet. Um, I wonder if I could do like simulcast while I'm like literally on. Oh shit, I am on YouTube. Oh, that's massive. So I should probably like share this and see where it goes from here. Um, yeah, I had no idea I could do this. So, all right, I guess I'm back on Facebook, and now it's Facebook Live little things. Cool. Okay. And in case this video isn't live, I'll maybe try and record a live session later on Facebook. So, interesting week. Massive photo turnout for early voting, which is kind of cool. Um, hello. How are you? Are you doing well? Are you not? Are you feeling ill? Could I interest you in something? Maybe. So anyway, yeah, massive photo turnout. Um, I'm not going to say who's doing what, but it's pretty much been predictable so far. And I'm not so interested getting into like, because I've never been into sports, so I'm not going to do a play by play. But yeah, like I said, pretty predictable. And I just want to remind everyone why I don't like Nicole Malliotakis. It has nothing to do with her political affiliation. She could be a Democrat and back pedophile priest, and I would be just as vigilant against her. It's because of what she did. So, yeah, and I've been rallying against her. If you've paid attention to me, I've been rallying against her for quite some time. Since it became apparent she was going to be readily against the CPA, and that was back way back 2000 when she first started. I think it was 2012, something like that. And I've been like regularly like just dissing her on my videos and in my text. So it's quite like poignant. I don't just like say this lightly. What else? So, yeah, like I said, very predictable. Most of the other boroughs have actual choices for candidacy. Staten Island, aside from the two offices, president and congressperson, it's basically conservative all the way down. We know this, even though there's people who support the Working Family Party, for example, or people who oppose like certain, there's really no one running, and there really is no interest, predominantly like influential interests that will run on Staten Island. So basically, most seats get taken by a Republican, as it's always been. That's just Staten Island politics for you. Um, it's been their way of bucking things. It's like they want to be their own state, literally, and they said it. All right, so that's like the nutshell of that. Now, what else? Let's see. Um, yeah, so it's been like a pretty interesting week. I should probably actually get to work while I'm making this video. I got like a whole bunch of papers to type. And So Halloween is coming up. Now we know the kids are not going to be trick or treating. That's not going to happen. We already expected that. That's a given. Um, but the one thing that we can still do is private affairs. We can still throw parties indoors. We know people. That part of community hasn't changed. So while this is on, we can do that. In fact, we should probably do that a lot more to like escape this insanity. Seriously, and it is insanity. What else? Yeah, for adult, I think adult parties are going to be it too. Interestingly enough, a lot of people are trying to plan like outings to like bars and different things, and I've already been invited at least one place, but I don't really know like how I feel about that yet. It's like Halloween night. It like requires me to travel from the island of the damned. So it's like, yeah, it is what it is. So I'm going to like I'm leaning towards sort of going because I want to be out of this place for a short while. At the same time, I don't want to throw myself into like a land of confusion where it's sort of going to be like I'm going to come back at 12 midnight and it's going to be like hazards and everything else. I'm not a big fan of that in scenarios like this. In a normal scenario, maybe not in like what we have going on now. There's too many things up in the air and you're putting yourself too much at risk. If you live right around the corner, that's one thing. But the person who I'm talking about doesn't live right around the corner. And I know a few people who will be traveling a distance to go and join her on Halloween. So it's like I'm leaning towards it to be supportive, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. All right, so what else? So I voted early. Hee. Yeah, you saw my photo. I wasn't gonna wait on that. I got too many things I need to do. So I got out like first thing I could Saturday morning, early Saturday afternoon, and just did it. I mean, and why wouldn't you if you have the opportunity? What I'm really curious to find out, so I'm like recording right now, and I think I'm recording with my Galaxy Live Buds. So the thing about them is they have this like supposedly awesome built-in mic to go with the sound coming out of them. So I'm really, really interested in seeing constructively how they record and how the audio comes out. Because until now, yeah. So interestingly enough, today I'm recording with like this ring light behind my phone. Because usually I try and record with the laptop, but I wanted to try this out because I wanted to try a different setup. I shut out the lights and then I have the ring light, as the selfie light or vlogging light, and I want to see how it would look, basically. Which I'm digging the videos so far. If it's like all coming across that way, I'm really gonna dig it. And right, okay, so on to other things. The now, so politics aside, we're all in COVID, right? So now where things are is things are finally settling off. Now, a lot of people have. I want to discuss something completely apolitical. The facts of COVID. Um, People are picking up a lot more on numbers published in September of this year, which was which put the death somewhere around 2.2 million, and they're comparing it, or somewhere around, no, the infection rate, no, the total deaths to around 2.2 million. That's what it was. And they're comparing it to previous years where the deaths are more, and they're trying to say, well, if hope is this bad. The problem with that is if you do what they're doing popularly, which is taking and comparing 2019 and 2017 to numbers that were acclimated, and that's the key word, acclimated, in September of 2020, you are actually taking numbers which are an estimated 1/3, no, 2/3 or less of the total year end averages. So here's why that's important. Um, if you take that number, right, and you actually consider it a third alone, without any, it's like 2.2 million, and you compare it to the numbers they are, which are like 2.6 or 2.7, I'd have to go on the CDC. In fact, I probably should, just to check. The point is, that's like an incomplete number. If you're comparing 2 point something million in September, which is probably bearing numbers that were acclimated as of, let's say, that were acclimated, sorry, not as of, but from the beginning of the year to the first half, which is January, February, March, April, May, June, and you're already talking to 2 million, then you have July, August, September, October, November, December, which is another 2 million. That's 4 million. And that is a good number if you count that way. When you're taking from 2017, these are numbers that have been completely acclimated. They've been completely put in, completely confirmed and reaffirmed and calculated and averaged out and everything else, and errors have been like completely dispelled. So they're like a solid, meaning they'll never change. If you estimate at least 4 million, you're already like outside the scope of previous years. Furthermore, if you take the numbers and accommodate for the spike we should expect during winter, because there's 2 times you in a year, there are certain times a year deaths will spike, they go way up, and winter's one of them. One is because increased auto accidents due to weather conditions. The other is people who are elderly in that tend to like die of natural causes more in the winter, primarily because they're not exercising their body. Their metabolism is on a downturn. So it finally, like, that one last breath clicks then. And I'm not saying this as scientific fact, I'm saying this as a roundabout explanation for what actually happens. And it makes sense. You don't fall asleep when you're full of caffeine and you're hyped up doing 10 million things. You fall asleep when you're relaxed at night, watching stupid TV shows, making stupid jokes, watching comedy. That's when you relax and finally fall asleep. So, yeah. And so basically, mortality always spikes during like the mortality rate, the amount of deaths usually spikes in the winter. So if you take that into consideration and say, okay, let's be prudent, let's be conservative and add just 10% extra, you've already bumped that 4 million up to 4.4 or 4.5 million. In which case, you're not only saying that that's more, you're saying they're significantly more. You're saying they're significantly greater numbers, and I'm not even saying that's factually the case. But based on the numbers we have coming in right now, and based on what could actually happen in the next 2 months, November and December, there's a lot of wiggle room. So we could go well over. But at the very least, knowing what we know about the numbers now, total deaths, we are already over where we were in 2019 and 2017. And it's not by a small amount. There's also another thing that's disconcerting. So here's the thing. People take these numbers that are reported for COVID only. So these are instances in where the person only died only when they had COVID with no other symptoms, which really is kind of rare. It's like talking about Parkinson's without any comorbidity. And it just doesn't happen. You have Parkinson's, you have things like tremorlessness in your hands where they shake. This is comorbid symptoms. And in COVID, when you have other comorbid symptoms, heart palpitations, problems breathing, they don't count that as straight up COVID. So when you look at those numbers for COVID only, you need to realize this. And you need to also look at the numbers where COVID was comorbid with other symptoms, because that's the way it usually happens. There are seldom any, and I mean any, even if you die of, let's say, a stroke, you're seldom just die a stroke on paper and that's it. It's usually stroke and comorbidity is problems breathing and seizures or something of that nature. And so you have to consider that. So I think that's actually important in the scope of this, because a lot of people are talking about things like the absence of the absence of isolated. That's what isolated as with COVID as an isolated cause, as if it's a thing. And anyone can tell you it's not a thing. It really isn't. And usually, if it is, it's because that person never got a chance to develop any symptoms of COVID before dying, or the and this is actually pretty serious, the mortician or the examiner who's doing this is actually not taking their autopsy seriously, and they're not giving enough details. And that does happen, but that's a bit more serious because it's not looked upon as well. All right, so let's see. So, all right. So aside from that, since we're all stuck in, let's talk good TV. So I don't know, like one of the things I got with the iPad, which I didn't realize was a thing with that, was the you get the trial of Apple TV. Apple TV is basically limited. It's Apple's version, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime. It's not the greatest, but if they're gonna give me a year free, okay. So yeah, so I signed up. I tried it. Tehran. If you haven't seen this show, you need to. Seriously, this is the bomb. It's about a Mossad agent who is going into Iran, into Tehran exactly, to infiltrate the Iranian government, and then becomes like involved in like this big spider web, like this seriously messed up, like convoluted, like witch hunt for her and anyone else who's associated, and it's really messed up. Um, it's done so well. Actually, you may end up loving, hating, and even love hating a lot of the characters. It really is that good. So I would definitely recommend it. What else? Hey, The Mandalorian is supposedly coming back soon, and I'm kind of curious to see. I think they're going to bring back the they're actually going to bring back the yeah, they're going to bring back someone to play Sabine Wren, which I find interesting. Like, put another real, genuine Mandalorian rather than like another Jedi or what the hell was it? Sit down there and like, 'cause they occupy like most of these things anyway, and it gets kind of tiring having the whole like show be about that. I'm really like kind of curious to see what this is going to be like. Because quite honestly, I haven't seen like a lot of this in a while. Where am I? Oh, there I am. Um, yeah, so it could be kind of fun to see where it goes. Um, I'm really kind of curious to see where this like video goes. I really think it's like cool if I'm gonna be able to like start doing YouTube. Oh, new easier moderation. Got it. So, oh yeah, okay. So let's get off of that for a second and get back to to meeting audio only with video. I'll forget it. You can't see it. I keep on forgetting because of the background. You can't see like, but it's funny as hell. I think I'll post on my like Facebook/Instagram later, which I will probably copy and paste that into this video, which should be sweet. I think, oh God, there I go. It's actually got like a 2-minute delay or something like that. And till I see it on there. And so it's kind of weird because then I can see myself. I really want to hear the audio quality and I want to see how this plays out. My big thing is to see how this works with community caption. Woohoo! Oh, nice. Yeah, so someone actually got something which is really cool. So, I mean, aside from that, yeah, so we're coming in from LGBTQ History Month, and we're going into November, which is Transgender Awareness Month. Yeah, so it, well, depending, it's Transgender Awareness Month if you're only trans. If you're non-binary, then it's MB Awareness Month, like non-binary awareness month. Just saying, you know, everyone chooses to like do that. So yeah, so we're gonna do like transgender. I gotta see if that like shows up when I look at the video later. My mother like actually went and I want to see if this does like pick it up or whether it's like my speech usually through the live buds, which it cancels out the noise and gives a clear, crisp, like reproduction of my voice. That's why I'm doing this actually. And I had no idea I can do this on YouTube. If I did, I would be doing this like forever because that's like pretty awesome. So transgender day of awareness, no, day of remembrance is coming up soon. That will be God. I should have that day like marked on my calendar right now, or I do, but I rather just have the calendar I'm supposed to have access to. I don't have that in front of me. So let's get this let's get this party started. Right, okay. So uh yeah, there you go. So I gotta work on that background. I really do. And I also should tilt you a little bit. There you go. Away from all that. Anyway, right. So trends, because usually I had this third day of remember. Yeah, November 20th. So yeah, it's coming back around this year again. It'll be like memorial event galore, I'm sure. So now I think one advantage I'll have is like really promoting this November 20th, which should be a good thing because you know as I get promoted in November, it will I don't know how to put it. It'll add to the whole thing of it. So right. Next video. Well, actually, in the comments of this, I'll add my Instagram, my Facebook, and what else? I have no idea. Twitter and Tumblr. Um, want to add other things, but I really haven't started using like beyond Facebook Live and this. I haven't had a chance to like use different platforms. So yeah, I'm basically like, but it's going to be like kind of fun, I guess. Uh, time, life. So yeah. Oh wow. Have I really recorded for that long? Well, I'm not really recording if I'm live, which is fun, but I should really share this and see how many people end up live from Facebook. Let's see. Come on, kids. Join me live on YouTube. Oh, I'm really gonna love this. I mean, it really could be a fun thing. I really haven't used this that much. Um, so yeah, it can actually be pretty good if I'm doing live. Um, and like I said, I gotta get the Instagram and the Snapchat. And the, oh shit, I got a Snapchat. I don't even use that much anymore. I could like do so many channels. I mean, I could do so many points of media, and I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna like focus my effort mostly on limited channels, like this one channel for YouTube. My live stream will go through the one thing I have on Facebook. Or actually, in that case, I might do it by the page because it makes sense. Because rather than having 10 billion people friend me, I could send you all to the Facebook page, and then the Facebook page can be shared like over a whole bunch of things. And I'm really digging the way the phone is working. And the reason I really get into it is because so right, so it's like if you have to use the desktop, you have to like have extra software to do effects and that and really manipulate it. And with the phone, it's a lot simpler, or with the tablet even. Um also, so the other side of that is that if you take and I'm trying to think right now. Give me a second. So if you take and I do Facebook Live, if I do it on the desktop and I want to add backgrounds and like mask and everything, in most cases you can't straight out. Facebook Live won't allow you the same freedom on the desktop that you get on the phone. And so that's like problematic. Um, so yeah, it would be nice in the sense that I would be able to go ahead and like really do a lot of stuff here. So let's speak of which, let's get into some news because people obviously have a life. I'm kidding, of course. But I sort of want to put like birthdays on here because oh, that's wait, what am I doing in? wrong place. Right place. Okay, so open up Facebook. So yeah, maybe I'll start doing these like in the morning when I'm doing work. It might make sense. See more. Da, 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 da. I'm like always kind of curious, like who is the one who sets the politics for these sidebars? Because it really is like I don't know. It makes sense in my mind. Um, Events, birthdays. Okay, let's see who I'm saying happy birthday today. Well, I know who will be like. All right, Catherine Mitchell was yesterday, so happy belated birthday. I know it left on your wall, but here's a video mention. Um, Nancy Ellis is coming up on November 1st. So is Danny Cross. Oh, Bob Rock is coming up on November 2nd. Hey, Diane. Hello. Yeah, Bob Rock is like my cousin's husband. Really cool. So, Elle, wait, no, Elsa passed. Like, Elle was like the 20. Wait, no, 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 no. Oh, you're actually on the 28th tomorrow. Happy birthday. Who else? Cass Marie is on the 29th. Friday. Seriously. No, that's Thursday. Sorry. I gave you one extra day. I know. Um, so is Jennifer Watson. Oh shoot, Jennifer Watson. I really haven't seen you in a while. Happy birthday. Um, Nikki Andy and Chels Marie Lair. That's a cool sounding name. Happy birthday. Jeff Anderson and Yuki Rosales. Oh, I haven't spoken to Yuki in like forever. I've got you on my friends list. Oh, happy birthday. Um, I figure like open up my Facebook, which is like a really huge, awesome thing. I wonder how this is gonna end up like when I really go live. Oh shit. Oops, sorry. Marla Moley. Oh god, that unicorn onesie. I'm telling you, that looks so adorable, Marla. You really, really rock that. I swear. I just love the way you can get in there and just do that without even like you are like I keep on telling you this and it's not said enough. I really believe when we were kids you were just gonna find that acting career and get out there, and I still believe you got like the shine for it. You do. You could really end up like being a personality on TV or something. And wow, 2020, Junior is celebrating his good grade on Psych of Adolescence. Junior, way to go. Yeah, this is just my feed. If this bores you, you know, how does someone run on crushing unicorns, ending Social Security and Medicare, and destroying the post office still have support? I have no idea. I've often asked myself that same question. I think I think it's actually going to be like an interesting election. Um, because here's the thing, a lot of people are convinced, it's going to end one way. I'm going to get what I want and it's going to be good. And that's not exactly what's happening. Up until now, we had a lot of divisive politics, and it's been building up more and more. And Trump, I'm not saying Trump personally, but the Trump era has been the biggest contributor to that. And with that being said, because of that, whoever wins will have a major storm after the election. It's not going to be like one, no, right. No. One, there's going to be rioting, there's going to be difficulties, there's everything's going to be all over the place. And this includes for people who are voting Democrat who think that's going to be the solution, because I said that back in 2008. Everyone jumped on the bandwagon of electing Obama, and I said, no, it doesn't work that way. When you elect him, it doesn't solve all your problems. It's you being politically involved and motivated that solves all your problems. And we need to start saying this. Damn, Fenella, you're really going at that food. Oh, God, that looks good. You're making me hungry just watching this. So yeah, it's not gonna, like, regardless of who wins, we are going to get riots out of the street, at least from one side, but I'm predicting that we get it from both sides, which seems antithetical until you consider how the 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 environment up until now has been feeding this friction between everyone and dividing them further. And that's going to only continue and bring on more like cantankerous, argumentative feuds. And it's only going to fuel more hate between the sides. And it's going to drive them more to extremes. It's been happening. It's continued to been happening, which isn't correct English. I know that. And it's going to continue to be happening. And it will happen in the future unless we actually say, we want to deal with these issues. Who is the candidate who will deal with our issues? And put that up front. Then we're going to see things change. Until then, we're basically going to be handed cookie cutter candidates on each side who are going to say what we want to hear, and then we vote for that package. It's basically like getting two Happy Meals. You're getting two Happy Meals in front of you, and you're being given like the choice of Whopper, onion rings, and milkshake versus soda, French fries, and cheeseburger, or Whopper with cheese or Big Mac, and those are your choices. And you're saying, okay, I would like the milkshake, but I don't like the Whopper, and I don't like onion rings. So because this is the fries and the burger I want, or the fries and the Big Mac, I'll just take that with the soda and sort of like, and that's what's happening. So basically, like, we're taking options where we sacrifice a good portion, and it becomes bigger every year or so, a good portion of what we want, what we think we can get. And that isn't working, because a lot of us, when we sit down, actually agree on fundamental issues as a country. So if we actually insisted on more of an elaborate scheme to get what we want rather than the one we have set now, we would get a lot more things done. But because the focus is on, because we get caught up in like, I don't want to think about this, I have other things to do. And then we let the political, whatever you want to, political pundits and political spin doctors and so forth, we let those people basically shape for us what the choices are. And when we do that, we sort of lose control and then we're left with A and B. And it, like I said, it's basically the choice between like one like happy meal and the other, or one like lunch meal or the other. It's like, you're offered Chinese food with iced tea, or like Spanish food with um espresso, and you want Spanish food with iced tea, it's not happening. So you basically sacrifice that one thing you want, which, like I said, keeps getting bigger year on year, for the other things you want, because you convince yourself of one thing is more important than the other, when in reality, if you sat down and thought about it, they're all kind of important. And there are like a lot of things, like, for example, iced tea versus coffee. As a nation, if we sat down and actually talked, we'd agree on all having tea. And then we'd say, you can have it iced, you can have it hot, and we'll both be happy. And that's what would happen. But instead of doing that, we get snow job by these people who control things like the debate commission to believe this is all there is. And that's all there ever could be. And this is a problem when it comes to people like those who support Joe Jorgensen, which I don't think is necessarily a good candidate anyway. But in a system where Joe Jorgensen has no chance, because we've let things be set up that way, it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. Withholding your vote only says, I won't like make sure the worst option won't happen to me. By saying I won't, I'll make sure, by saying I'm more willing to sacrifice my vote than to use it to guard against what I consider the worst option, you're basically allowing politics again to be steered, this time even more so by pundits and professional spin doctors and so forth. So this is even though it seems lighthearted at first, it really gets more into more significant like details that you really can't get rid of. And so what you end up doing is like you end up voting people who are not just a little, well, they end up allowing people who are not just a little bit against your interests, but who are disgustingly against your interests. And then you're like, where did it all go wrong? You gave up your choice. That's where it all went wrong. So, no matter what you think, you need to get out there to vote. And right now, I mean, if you really need to vote for like the third party, the option that's yours. But honestly speaking, knowing that two candidates are all that's really available that are realistically going to get the I would vote for the one that closest matches your ideals, because that's going to push the numbers up. And I'm speaking from an apolitical perspective. So, I could speak on this side, but no, apolitical completely. So, yeah, you don't do that. You sacrifice the chance to make that choice definitively, and you risk the possibility that the other person will actually get in and you'll lose at least part of your voice. Because with this mentality comes other things which are not discussed, like the fact the president. There's a lot of this like rhetoric going around lately, like the president is like uh, he won. He's a Republican, so Republicans get no. He won the job, but he is still the representative, meaning he still works for all the citizens of this country. Whether he does so as a Republican or a Democrat doesn't matter. He still has to agree to do the work that's dictated to him by the consensus. Agreed. Usually, that consensus is represented by the houses of Congress, both the House of Senate and House of Representatives. But it is like he is the employee of all Americans. So that's one thing people need to get into their mind. And they need to get this idea that, you know, he is someone who we have to protest every time. No, we have to do other things. We have to write letters. We have to make sure in writing, he knows in writing and email and faxes, he knows what his constituents want and think. Because that, not what the media says, not what he may want to portray when he's going all off in the news. That that opinion of his whole constituency is what matters. Everything else is irrelevant. He doesn't get paid to like serve anyone else in that respect. And that's why we elect seats to Congress and Senate every year, not just every 4 years, because as it goes forward, we hit quarter term, the more significant midterm, and then three-quarter term elections, which if we don't like what he's doing, we take away the power he has in the legislative body. And we've seen this. We've seen it here, and we've seen it like we actually saw him like, which is really messed up. Like with Obama, when Republicans want to lash back, they took back seats in the half term. With Trump, and this is a fact, this is something you can look up. It's like a mix, but seats were like taken back in the quarter term election. So it wasn't right. Wait, no. Yeah, no, it was half term. This is true. So no, it was taken back in half term, and no, maybe it was. Pelosi's been in there for quite some time now as a majority. So yeah. Anyway, point is, if he doesn't do his job, there are other ways effectively, but also we have the right to access him directly and demand. Now, there's another problem with this. People don't understand the checks and balances between branches. They think it all has to work in their favor. And this is a problem with a limitation of understanding American civics. the branches keep each other in check by doing what they do best in the time frame it takes them to do it within the limitations of the law. So, like, I'll give you an example. If you have, like, oh, I don't know, one of these laws Trump signed, he signs an executive order. Now someone takes it to court. Here's the thing. There is something called precedent, which is two things. One, it's like written in places like statutory law that Congress has already passed, or it is actually in the court as they interpreted federal law in contrast to what's being done. So, for example, if you write a law that violates the First Amendment, that law is gone, or maybe modified at least part of it, maybe. But the point is, if that law becomes ineffective as it was passed, or as it was signed as an executive order, because no law can violate the Constitution as already set out unless Congress agrees by majority under convention to change the Constitution. These things, this for this reason, this is why the Constitution doesn't change easily. You can have, like, oh, I don't know, some like 6/10 of the Congress say, we're going to add an amendment that says this, and that still wouldn't be enough. That's the reality. So it's, you know, but in the meantime, the courts have to take what's in front of them against what's already been passed and say yes or no. And if they read what's already on the books, what's clearly on the book, what's clearly set in stone, and they see it like they see what's just been passed as no, 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 yes, then, you know, and where's best case scenario? The no, no, no yet gets stricken, and the yes stays, which usually that makes the law completely ineffective. In the worst case scenario, because of the way it works, the whole law is just scrapped because it's completely unconstitutional. Significant portions of it depend on violating the Constitution, and that just can't be done. A good example of this is like the ACA. Like there were like mandated parts that said you have to buy insurance or be fined or things like that. And while other portions, like other significant portions, were left intact, those portions, those like mandates, were basically the things that were reversed. And so that's what it comes down to. You like can't do that, have it measured to the Constitution, and then think it'll pass. The court thing is to refute and say, no, it doesn't. And so when a lot of like, um, when a lot of people get offended by the court saying no, what they don't realize is the courts aren't saying no. The courts are saying, this is what you wrote. This is what you were allowed to write by the law. And so you don't have the right to put this into law. So effectively, no. Well, technically, no. But effectively, you never had the right to do this to begin with because this was already done. It's like having like law A saying everyone's guaranteed A and B, but C on behalf of governments is strictly forbidden. Then you write a law that says the government will be empowered to do C. Well, no, because law A said that was illegal. So if you're passing an illegal law, how does that make sense? And that's where the courts get their power to do checks and balances. It's really not that complicated. And the reason why people get frazzled by it is they don't sit back and think, which is like why my favorite expression is like to be liberally legislative and conservative, judiciously conservative, which gets misinterpreted into partisan politics. What it means is basically that you legislate liberally, you write as much good law as possible, and then you leave the correct interpretation of that law to the courts, who will then be conservatively, right, conservatively judicious, meaning they'll give a lot of thought to it and they'll actually evaluate it. There will be good forethought, not just, oh, is this a good law or not? No, is this a good law? What's the precedent on this? How was these laws used before? And how does that reflect in this law? And how, you know, how do they play off of each other? And can this law really be passed if it conflicts so much with the first law? And it's that like mind numbing, like you have to really take it apart, um, like formulation and opinion writing. That I mean by like conservatively judicious. Um, but yeah, so they have to be that way. They have to give it a number for a great amount of forethought and weigh it against what came before. And if that doesn't jive, then they have to say no go. Um, unfortunately, for some people. So where do I go from here? This is like a really long YouTube video. I'm actually gonna like look at this and I swear to God, if I hear no sound, I'm gonna be like, oh dude, you didn't just do all that video for no reason. Right, so let's see what else we can do. And why does it look like that? Oh yeah, that's why. Cool. Um, so aside from that, yeah, so that's like checks and balances from that. The way the legislature does it is they go with this slow mo, like we're going to take our time and talk about a new law and then pass it. And a good example of how this check and balance works would be the ADA amendment of 2004, I think, maybe 2008. I have to look it up. But it was done under the junior George W. Bush, which is kind of ironic. Both variances of the ADA, the original ADA, signed all the way back in 87, 88, and then the amended ADA done like practically 20 years later. Wow. Um, or something of that nature. It's like, yeah, there is a lot there. It's incredible. So, right. The so the regional ADA, the way it was implemented was okay. Congress said what was supposed to be disabled. The problem came when the courts got a hold of it. And what the courts would take it as is if you have a corrective measure, let's say you are hard of hearing or deaf and you have hearing aids. The second you have hearing aids, they no longer consider you legally deaf, even though you factually were. And your correction depended upon those things not failing. So what basically happened with that is there were like a whole bunch of stuff that went into the went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And it was argued in the Supreme Court's like, no, this is what it is. You're like you're in a wheelchair, you're no longer disabled. And it's like, how on earth does this make sense? Um, I don't think it was used with wheelchair uses, but it was used with more like identified, invisible, not as noticeable disabilities, hearing loss, mental health, neurocognitive, neurodivergent disabilities, palsy such as cerebral or Bell. Yeah, these were the things that more got the shaft because it was like, while you looked like you were performing, you were no longer disabled. And this affected mostly employment law, but it also affected um, access to services in the educational realm. So yeah, fast forward. So finally, after like a lot of noise and a lot of like shouting and so forth, um, a basically Republican Congress, no less, which is surprising, all things considered. Um, Sometimes I wonder if the only reason the Republicans passed this in what is it, 80? I gotta look it up. I think it's like 88 or something, and then to that is because they were desperate for votes. It's like it literally came at the end of George W. Bush's um it literally came on the verge of the end of George W. Bush's second term. So he was already out of office. And yeah, there was like serious concern whether they would be able to get any like right. So it's 1990 for the first one, and I'm almost sure it's 2008 for the second one. I mean, that's it on record. I could have sworn they were passed earlier, but that's another story. Why am I like going like that? That's weird. Let me move up. Maybe that'll help. Hmm, yeah, sort of. All right, let's see. So I think it's the ADAA. So anyway, yeah. So yeah, George Herbert Bush really didn't want to sign the first one. Yeah, 2008, the ADAA, the American with Disabilities Act Amendment. So that was passed because the Congress finally had to clarify, like, we get the problem interpreting this, but let's clarify. The act covers everyone disabled, whether or not their disability is accommodated, because, at least in part, their disability remains a problem, in as if the correction fails, they're back on square one. And this was important, especially to disabled employment law, because before then, a lot of cases concern employees being fired or not hired due to disability, which probably impacted me a hell of a lot in the 90s and 2000, a lot more than even I realized. It's like, yeah, it's disgustingly high, and people were sent home by the court telling you that you aren't discriminated against. You basically had hearing aids in. I mean, if they were as big as like satellite dishes, and it was still not discrimination, and clearly it was. Say what you want. So yeah, this helped clarify that, in that, you know you actually were disabled when you had corrective measures, hearing aids, um, for mental health disorders, psychotropic, like, medications, benzodiazepines, or there. I'm not even going to get into technical, but there are a lot of things, or anti-epileptics for people who have seizures, trileptal, Clonopin, which is a huge one that is a generic anti-epileptic, which often gets seconded or seconded as a mental health medication, to be exact, an anti-anxiety drug, which is kind of interesting. Um, so yeah, so you have this final proclamation that having a corrective measure, especially on a disability that isn't so noticeable, is not good enough reason for the courts to say, I don't have a disability. What was also clarified, and this is important too, because we have to say why we want this, like, this way. So what was clarified is you couldn't, like, file discrimination for being fired for reasonably not being able to do your work. And what I mean by that is this: if you are, like, with hearing loss, you can still skydive. But if you're paraplegic without arms and legs, and you're going to jump out of an airplane with a parachute, I would love to see how you safely open that parachute. If you can, you're fine. But most cases, that wouldn't be the case. And this is what the court was saying, was like, you can still be denied in these cases because there is a reason. It's not just like, but outside of those, if you are, like, denied employment or fired, it is for anything but reasonable, um, for reasonable points, like, you can't hear, therefore you can't do something requiring awesome hearing, or you have no voice, therefore you cannot actually sing into a microphone. Aside from those points, everything else, like, they can't fire you for being deaf in like a telecall center where there are like a trillion options to accommodate you so that you can do your job. So there's no reason. Um, Also, they can't like if you can still like type, obviously you can still be a writer. So for these things, they was discriminatory, and reality is that's how it should be. Because a lot of people were being held back and either fired or held back from employment because of these reasons. So having that law effectively the way it did end up in 2008 was a saving grace. And it finally not just resolved that, but resolved something just as significant within the colleges. Until then, a lot of the colleges were allowed to like skim on services for certain population, which they considered not so disabled or not disabled in that way. This law, because of what it did for employment, essentially closed that gap. And what's significant is about that, they can no longer say, well, you may have hearing loss and attention deficit disorder, but that doesn't matter. We don't have to give you like a pen that records. Or if you have hearing aids in, why would you need a pen that records? So this had basically like within a certain scope of diagnosable condition, you are now allowed that accessibility option to accommodate those conditions. So now students who are limited in what they could use to accommodate their disabilities were now given a wider range so they can more freely go out and like, wow, learn. Like that's what you go to college for. And I think the discussion has been opening it up to more accessibility, and that's pissed a lot of people off. Like people who generally are like used who want the Stone Age don't want to see people with ADD with like pen recorders, smart pens, because then that means they're getting an unfair advantage. They're taking notes, plus they're recording the professor. And just so you know, students who did that have to sign a contract that says they'll destroy the recording at the end of the semester. Not that they necessarily have to if they have a sort of consensus between them and the professor, because usually then the contract is just a formality, but it's to say that, look, I'm not going to use this to reproduce your work. I'm not using this to invade the classroom. I'm using this to help my learning and to make me a better student. And if that means I have to tell you I will destroy all this material at the end of the semester, I'm willing to do it because I have nothing to prove. Yeah. So right, okay. From there, we end up going into we covered the so yeah. So we're leaving LGBTQIA History Month. Ooh, that was like that flew by. And we're going to be going soon into what can we go? I don't know. I gotta see what this lighting can do. Ew. Oh, what do you think of that? So, right. So going from LGBTQI, like History Month, and we're going to be going into Transgender Awareness Month in November, and of course, November 20th is Transgender Day of Remembrance. So, yeah, if you ain't down with that, if you ain't down with like memorializing people who were murdered unjustly, just for who they were, there's the door. Just saying, because I know a lot of you conservative get offended by that. And I'm just saying, I'm not going to be, not only these people who are going to be apologetically trans. So, you know, the feels could take a walk out the door to someplace else on the other side of things, away from the rainbow and away from my trans flag. Oh God, this flickering. Right, so yeah, that's gonna be kind of like interesting. I think there'll be a lot of events for that, which should be fun. What else? Um, yeah, so I think there's going to be a lot of discussions on this channel after Halloween. Because for those who do know me, know who don't know me that well, sorry, know may know that I'm trans, maybe not, and there are those who understand a little more than that. So let me um clarify. I am a non-binary transgender woman, and that's kind of hard to maneuver by itself. But I'm like, okay, I'm either what you would call an agender girl or agender femme or a trans feminine neutroid. So I'm like a neutroid slash agender person on top of being trans, femme, non-binary. So that's really a mouthful. Um, I take pride in all the communities I belong to, and I take pride in who I am. So what that means is, generally speaking, my non-binariness is not an excuse for like me to go half-ass at my transition or anything else I do, and including this channel, which should be fun. I want to see what this looks like. Um, so yeah, it it's kind of gonna be an interesting month because I think what I'm gonna end up doing is dissecting the different parts of that identity, because in reality, even though they're separate, they all go under the general trans umbrella. And I think, separating that will give me a chance to explore it and give some validity and such to a bunch of people out there who right now probably feel pretty invisible and pretty invalidated, especially in the current scenario and the current administration. Aside from that, right. Hey, I guess you didn't expect something this long. Um, Seriously, we started streaming 84 minutes ago. So I've been on for an hour and 24 minutes. I want to give these earpieces a break soon. Um, so here it goes. I'm going to say this. Yeah, it seems I can like live stream on this, which is really cool. Um, so there's going to be a lot more than that going on. Uh, I guess that's it for now. As like October into November rolls and on, and we get into more topics, I think I'll go from there. But for now, I want to end on this because wow, we really haven't done a video in a while, and I really overdid it, like 85 minutes and counting. I am either going to have a lot of people into it or not. So, okay, here we go. Um, in that case, I'm going to end the video here, and I'm going to say probably later on I will do a half baked video for Facebook Live, and then I'll share this video on my public page, and maybe even like I'll share it on Twitter, and is Tumblr just sharing? And then I'm gonna add like the accounts to this so anyone who wants to can follow. And I think if this is gonna be like a good setup, I think getting back into this way will definitely be something I'll start doing, and then we can go from there. Aside from that, I hope all of you are having a good evening, night. Oh, wait, what am I doing? I'm gonna end it here. Wait, where is it? Ah! Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, this is gonna be fun watching this later. All right, everyone, have a good night. I hope you're doing well.